Always a pleasure to have you on.
Hey, good morning. How are you doing?
We're doing well. Lots of stuff to get into. I did want to start because I know that you've been asking for this, more taxing authority, or you need help from the state in order to raise more revenue. And anytime you talk about tax increases or a tax authority system kind of thing, we get interested in that. What exactly are you looking for, and why do you need it?
Well, I'll start with why we need it. First of all, the state's $3.5 billion of apparently make-believe money has evaporated in terms of the ability to fund transit projects. But even on a good day, that money was never enough. For example, Baltimore's Red Line wasn't in that stack. The Charles County Connector isn't in that stack. Asking the state to raise money for all of the county's transportation projects is just unrealistic. On any given day, 80% of the people being asked to kick money into the state fund for transportation don't come from the counties that need it.
Okay.
In contrast, and I live with Virginia, right across the river from us. They went down about 12 years ago to the state legislature with a Republican governor, Republican legislature, and with the council from Fairfax and other leaders and business leaders, and got the state to give Northern Virginia counties taxing authority to raise money for transportation. It's not broad taxes. Doesn't give them the ability to raise money for school programs or anything else. It's basically transportation taxing authority.
Okay, stop there for a second just for clarification.
Yeah.
So currently, right now, you don't have the authority to do that, to implement a tax that would be just used on roads or transportation in Montgomery County?
No, if I created a special taxing district, I'd have to tax residents at the same rate as commercial property, which becomes a non-starter. And in Virginia, the businesses ask for taxes that are exclusively sitting on business property.
Okay, so you want the ability to do this. In order to do it, you have to have the approval from the legislature to say that you can have this taxing authority. Now, if you have this taxing authority, how would you use it? What would the tax be?
Well, we'd have to figure out what the tax would be, but we would use it. We've been trying for over 10 years to build a rapid transit network. This county has gotten so far behind, and I'll say the state's gotten so far behind on transportation in general, that we don't compete with other people. In Virginia, they took the taxes, they built up Tyson's Corner, they brought in rail lines, they brought in bus rapid transit. They did things that would represent investments that help businesses grow. I'm looking at this happen across the river, and we can't come close to matching that. So if a person has a choice of coming to Montgomery County, where we're struggling to move people, or Fairfax County, where they put a lot of money into moving people, we don't compete well in that. And why the businesses supported it in Virginia is pretty simple. The money goes to improve transportation where the businesses are. Mm-hmm. So it's actually good for them. And like I said, because it can't be used for other things, the businesses always worry about you're going to tax me and then you're going to start using it on social programs. I don't even want to have that debate. I want to wall the money off, make sure it has to go to transit investments, make sure the developers get the improvements where the money is going to go. So if I'm taking money, this is something true in Montgomery County today. We take money from developers in Bethesda. There's no guarantee that money will build a project in Bethesda. With what we're doing, what we'd like to do, the money we'd get would go back to building projects to benefit the development industry. In Virginia, it's a very symbiotic relationship. Nobody fusses about it. And we need to, if we want to compete, and everybody says Virginia, you want to compete, you got to look at what they do to beat you. This is one of the things they do to beat you, to beat us.
Speaking with the county executive from Montgomery County, Marc Elrich, the largest jurisdiction of all 24 jurisdictions in the state of Maryland population-wise. County Executive, since we talked with you last, we had your state's attorney, John McCarthy, on talking about the necessity for Annapolis to look at changing the juvenile justice laws that we've had in place to make Montgomery County safer. First of all, are you supportive of some of the efforts that have been discussed by these state's attorneys, like making sure that when certain juveniles commit, like under the age of 13, certain crimes, there is at least a magistrate hearing that as opposed to just releasing them back in the community and efforts like that? Are you supportive of that?
Look, I'm more interested in having places to put youth that aren't criminally related. I mean, the fear that everybody has and the reaction is if you turn kids over back to their parents and the parents say, my kid is out of control, I can't stop them, you're not doing anything to help that kid not commit the next crime. and you're not doing anything to protect the communities. My interest was moving away from a criminal justice solution to a solution where people get the mental health that they need. And sometimes that means that you're not going out on the street. You're going to be in a facility where you're getting treatment. And I just think it was a mistake to not think about the treatment piece when people said, hey, we don't want these kids going to jail. I get getting rid of the school to prison pipeline. Sending somebody to jail becomes a lifetime sentence. We never think about that. But, you're not getting the job. You may not be getting an apartment after you've been in jail. You get a criminal record. We should avoid that as much as possible, because then what other path do these people have? But if somebody's that, I'd say emotionally upset or emotionally not functioning, that they're committing crimes and going out doing over and over again, that person needs help.
Right.
And you're not going to incarcerate them. You need to put them in a facility where they can get help.
So what does that entitle? I mean, what does that mean, a facility? Is that like institutionalizing them, or is that just another word for a detention center?
I think it's got to be an institution that's actually focused on mental health. When I was growing up in the 60s, I had several friends, more than one, who wound up because they were considered out of control in Waxters or Springfield.
Mm-hmm.
I could question some of the things I saw them do up there.
Right.
But the idea was that this person needed help, not to be punished and put in a jail. Plus, our jails are largely training grounds so people can come out and do more crimes. I'll tell you someday about my friend who spent time in Towson jail and what he learned up there. So the thing is to try to get them out. We used to have facilities. Montgomery County used to have a network of mental health facilities. A previous county executive, a couple of county executives ago, shut down all the mental health facilities. So we have a real dearth of facilities to treat people in, whether it's residential or whether it's, come in once a week. We've got to put back a semblance of a mental health system in the state and in Montgomery County. And we need everything ranging from a place where somebody can go for more than a day and places where people can go and just get help and counseling.
But like you say, what you're describing, while we don't want to call it, incarceration, it is a form of detention and is keeping young people for their own safety, number one, but for the public safety. And the reason I raised this, County Executive, because Mayor Mario Bowser has most recently come out and said, instead of releasing violent young people back into the District of Columbia, they need to be held in some form of detention for public safety as well as their own safety.
And yeah, I think that the question is, what do we do with it? Do we take the shortcut and just make it like a jail where you provide no services and you think you're going to punish somebody into submission, or do you actually treat these kids? I mean, you don't get that messed up, that angry at that age without having some fundamental things not going right in your life or in your perception of life. I mean, it's just not normal to be out, shooting people, robbing, hijacking people at the age of 12 and 13 years old. Something has gone fundamentally wrong. And we just need to accept that something's gone fundamentally wrong. My general view is that, having a society that's fairly racist and having a black population which continues to sit at the bottom of all the social determinants when you're measuring things, it is depressing growing up believing you're never going to grow up and you have no future. And if you talk to some of these kids, this is what they believe. And
but the answer is not to put the gun to someone's head. That's the problem, is getting that deterrent. Yeah. But that deterrent effect can't just come from a speech. It's got to come from some form of discipline and some form of accountability.
Yeah, we say accountability, that's a gentler word. When you say discipline, the problem is not always going to be corrected with discipline. You got to understand how this person's looking at the world and why it is they've chosen the path that they've gone on.
And what's gonna fix that, though? I mean, you're telling me that there's a state-run or a county-run facility that is going to change that, or they're going to go right back to the home that they grew up in the circumstances where they grew up in that's dysfunctional.
So I wish I could change more things, but we're not able to change more things. I think parents need counseling too. If a parent tells us that their child's out of control, they need help understanding what they can do to control a child. I heard scary stories when I was teaching school. Parents would say, I can't control my kid. We're talking about 10 and 11-year-olds who I was teaching. And I can't stop them. If they say they're going out, they're going out. I can't make them do anything. If I touch them, they say they're going to call the police, so I can't touch my kid. This is not a good recipe for raising healthy children.
Right. All right.
So,
well, let's
think a little deeper in it rather than just say, "Hey, let's go back to jails again."
No, but there's a middle ground. It's not jail or it's a situation. We had Governor Moore on just a couple of days ago, county executive, and one of the things that I think is important to understand is there's a public safety component. If we're not keeping you safe, county executive, me or Brian safe, then what are we doing just by putting kids back on the street?
I totally agree. I think there's got to be a place and a method of helping these kids, and it can't be just saying, "Go back and do it again." I know there are true stories about people being momentarily arrested, then released, and then just telling the police they're going to go out and do the same thing again. Mm-hmm. That's nuts. And how long is that going to go on?
No, it isn't.
Real quick, I know there's a couple of bills that you would like to see passed in Annapolis regarding aggressive driving. What are they, and why do you think we need them?
Because we have people who drive like lunatics, who endanger people deliberately. We have the case of our own police officer who, in the effort to stop this guy, was putting out stop strips, and the guy steered around the stop strip, went right for the officer, and he lost both his legs.
It's horrible.
It is horrible, and that person is absolutely a horrible human being. People knew who he was. He used to drive up next to police cars. He'd sit there, gun his motor, take off, because we don't do high speed pursuits because it's dangerous to do high speed pursuits. So this guy operated with impunity. You see these people going out, blocking an intersection, they're doing donuts and insane things with their cars. People get hit by the cars and injured sometimes. And, we don't have the police force to put a stop to that. So we need to criminalize the behavior. They need to understand that they're going to lose their cars. I mean, if it was me, I'd make their cars go away. I'd say your car's an impound. It's impound for a year. If you ever learn how to drive and be sane again, you can get your car back. And I think they need to be off the streets for a while, because if you just give them a ticket, mm-hmm. And even if I took their car away, this doesn't stop them from going out and getting another car and doing the same damn thing. And it's going to hurt people. And it's just dangerous behavior. They advertise it. They make a show out of it. And then we had one in Tacoma Park on the border with Prince George's County recently. And there was a crowd pre-assembled to see this. Mm. And it's another example of, things gone seriously out of control, and we need to put it back in control. But if these people feel they face no penalties,
right,
they use fake tags, it's like, if you're not going to stop them, they're just going to keep doing it.
They do it again.